The Colts' most dominant playmaker underwent surgery to put himself back on track, and we're also getting closer to finding out who his next head coach is going to be. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is presented by PrizePicks, which is daily fantasy made easy. Just pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their stat projections, then you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with our promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. I am Jake Arthur, coming to you with the weird camera review once again. That is Zach Hicks. You know the two of us from horseshoehuddle.com. Don't worry about me. This computer won't be in my life anymore starting next week's show. So hopefully we get that settled and squared away. Today, we're going to talk about Jonathan Taylor. He underwent surgery to clean up that ankle injury that gave him fits all throughout this season. He sounds very optimistic about that. Plus, the Colts now have several head coaching candidates that they've been bringing in for second interviews. I think we're finally getting closer to finding out who this next head man in charge is going to be. So we're recording this Sunday. It was Sunday morning that we found out that Packers special teams coordinator Rich Bisaccia was coming back for another interview in the coming week, as well as Eagles offensive coordinator Shane Steichen, which has been the guy that he's been our table pounder throughout this process, especially Zach. Last week after we found out who a few of these guys were going to be, it was nice, but we're like, okay, where are these offensive guys? Where is Shane Steichen? Well, now we know he is going to be involved in that. So Zach, how are you feeling about this? Bisaccia was kind of a surprise, but Steichen is that's definitely something making us more optimistic.
Yeah, just talking about these final two guys that got announced. So the initial list we heard was anywhere from 6 to 7 finalists, I think is what they were going with. Dan Quinn obviously dropped out before his finalist interview, which was supposed to be this past Saturday. And he got replaced by Wink Martindale, who's the defense coordinator for the New York Giants. So yeah, I mean, if the final list is 6 to 7 guys, we're at 6 right now. Maybe it's going to be closer to 8 or 9. Like, this is what we call a really extensive search. Like, they are, when Chris Ballard said no stone left unturned, I mean, this is 100% like the widest net you could possibly cast. But yeah, when you talk about these two candidates compared to the other ones, Rich Bisaccia obviously has the most experience among all of them, even more than Wink Martindale or Raheem Morris. He's been in the league for, I think, 25 years now. He's won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's been to other Super Bowls. Like, he's a very well-accomplished, well-respected coach. Was an interim head coach a couple of years ago as well, and did a really good job with the Las Vegas Raiders. So, yeah, Rich Bisaccia, I don't hate him as a candidate. Obviously, I like some of the younger, more impressive names a little bit more, but I like Bisaccia. And then Shane Steichen, obviously, is my guy. We're going to see him here on Sunday in the NFC Championship game. You guys will already know the results of that by the time you're listening to this. So hopefully the Eagles are still moving on, or I guess it would be better if they lost at this point, so we can just kind of keep moving with the head coaching stuff. But no, I'm a big fan of Shane Steichen. I think he's the best offensive mind in terms of offensive coordinators in the entire league. I love what he's done with that Eagles offense, and I think he'd just be phenomenal for whatever young rookie quarterback the Colts bring in here on draft day.
Yeah, without question. So just to kind of recap the last week of these finalist interviews, Wednesday was Jeff Saturday. Get that one out of the way. Broncos defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero on Thursday. Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris on Friday, and it was Wink Martindale on Saturday. I don't think we quite know the day yet for the two that were just announced this morning. But it's an interesting list. I definitely like the list better now that Steichen's on there. It also makes me more optimistic for those of us who think the Colts could get jumped for C.J. Stroud. If they need to get Anthony Richardson. I don't want to make it sound like Anthony Richardson's a fallback plan because he could be the best suited for the Colts. But now the possibility of pairing Steichen with Anthony Richardson, if that's the way the Colts decide to go in that instance, that makes me a lot more optimistic. It makes me feel like possibilities are a lot more realistic now. And we talked about that pairing last week on one of our shows. The perfect head coach quarterback combos, Steichen and Richardson was our selection. So Bisaccia, honestly, I don't hate that one. 7-5 with the Raiders. That team was an absolute mess. They dealt with the Henry Ruggs stuff, the John Gruden stuff, and they managed to turn that into. He went 7-5 with that team, and they were a wild card team in the playoffs. Beat the Colts in Week 17 in a game the Colts absolutely needed to win. So yeah, he's pretty well respected. He knows how to lead a team. Something I thought was interesting because I wrote up the little newser on horseshoehuddle.com Sunday morning. So he's been in the league since 2002. He's been a special teams coordinator the entire time. You know, we see a lot of these guys, they work their way up from quality control, assistant, this and that, and then they get the coordinator. He's been a coordinator for 21 years now. So he knows what he's doing. Like you mentioned, he was on that staff with Raheem Morris in 2002 that won the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers. So it's interesting. It's not sexy because, I mean, I don't think a lot of fans want to see the 60-year-old coordinator who's not really been a head coach before get it. They want the young, forward-thinking guy, but it doesn't mean that these guys couldn't have high ceilings and be really good head coaches. But
Yeah.
he's an interesting one. He's not my least favorite candidate. I'll put it that way.
Oh yeah, who is that? No, I'm just kidding. I think we know who our least favorite candidates are. But something really interesting about this head coaching search that's kind of emerged in these last couple of days, and I think it was it Tom Pelissero that I think said it, or Jeremy Fowler, one of them said it, that the Colts interviews, these in-person ones, have been going from I think 10:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. like 11 hours of interview. That's insane. I can't even imagine what that process is like. Like, I'm sure a lot of it is talking about roster breakdown, what kind of staff you would bring in, just introducing them to the facility and a lot of people that they would be working with directly in the building. But I still don't know how that takes 11 hours. Like, part of me feels like this interview is just to see how committed you are to the Colts. If we can, can we wear you out in 11 hours?
I wouldn't be surprised if some of it is like whining and dining, like take them to this restaurant, and then the meetings and chatting continues just outside the facility. And then I wouldn't be surprised because one of the most popular places for prospective clients around Indy to take a do for dinner, Rick's Boatyard, is literally like 5 minutes from the Colts facility. Very heavy Colts hangout. I wouldn't be surprised if they took him there. I think Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly took Matt Ryan there on day one last year when he got into town. So
all right, look, if any of you guys,
Rick's vibe.
if any of you guys listening are a waiter at that place, let us know if you've seen any Colts personnel rolling in there or whatever. We will take that as sources. But I think one of the more interesting things that if you guys really want to read between the lines, like, this is not an insider thing at all. This is purely reading between the lines. We didn't really hear anything about Jeff Saturday's interview. We didn't hear anything whatsoever about Wink Martindale's interview. I don't even know if that one actually happened because we didn't hear a thing about it. Like, if he even showed up to it or not, because I don't think I've seen any kind of report or anything on it. But we did hear that Raheem Morris's one went really well and he was there really late. And then we did hear about Ejiro Evero from Tom Pelissero, I think on Rich Eisen's show, saying it went for like 14 hours or something. Like, absolutely insane. So again, maybe reading the tea leaves, reading a little bit in between the lines, those two might have gone a little bit better than the other two, but that's pure speculation just based off of what reporters are saying. But yeah, no, I thought it was funny. Like, Wink Martindale, I don't even know if he actually was there or not. I didn't hear one report if he was even in the building at all. Like, I'm assuming it happened, but that's all I ever heard was he's interviewing on Saturday, and that was it. That was all I heard about it.
Maybe we'll hear about it in a day or two. But next, the Colts' biggest offensive playmaker went under the knife to hopefully make him as good as new. But first, let's tell you about PrizePicks, which is daily fantasy made fast and easy. Just hop on and pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their stat projections, then you can win up to 25 times your money on your entry. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch, and entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is just that easy. Withdrawals are safe and fast as well, and PrizePicks is currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users, you guys can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That means if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, they will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to 100 smackers. That's a legal term, right? Smackers.
Yeah, for sure.
All right,
definitely.
Cool. All right,
Dollaroos.
Yeah. So some other interesting news that came out Sunday morning. Jonathan Taylor, he underwent a cleanup procedure on his ankle. He, of course, I think he suffered in like week 4, whatever that first Titans game was. And he was just never right all season. Obviously, he was not the 2021 version that we saw that was just kind of breaking franchise records and having one of the best seasons we've seen from a Colts running back ever, really. I think it was Chris Ballard was asked after the season if there was any surgery, in the cards for Jonathan Taylor. They were just kind of non-committal at the time. But I guess he did have surgery on Wednesday. Very well-renowned Dr. Anderson up in Green Bay. So he went to the best of the best for his surgery. By all accounts, it went really well. He's a really fast healer in general. No one in the NFL really takes care of their body as well as he does. So I don't think there's really any reason to have any pessimism right now. I mean, I know we've been jaded by off-season surgeries before, especially on the lower leg and ankle and things like that. But no, they knocked this out in January. They've got plenty of time. They don't have to do anything on the field until May or April, May, around OTAs and stuff like that. So plenty of time to rest up, take it slow. Just to give you some details from Joel Erickson, he is rehabbing in Arizona after undergoing arthroscopic debridement to clean out his ankle. I don't know. That's too many D's and E's and I's next to each other.
That's all you. You can handle that. I'm not pronouncing that stuff.
He cleaned up his ankle on Wednesday, and everything looks optimistic right now.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. I mean, I know that there's going to always be that little bit of fear where one injury turns into 2, turns into 3, turns into 4 when it comes to running backs, because we're talking about a position where, he's going to get over 300 touches a season in a healthy season. That's a lot of wear and tear. And this is a guy who's already had a lot of wear and tear since high school. In college, he got the ball a lot. With the Colts, he's got the ball a lot. So maybe instead of taking this and thinking like, oh no, here comes more injuries, here comes the injury prone thing, maybe take this as, hey, the Colts need to start getting other guys ready for this rotation of running backs. Because we did see during his historic season, yes, Nyheim Hines was a little bit a part of the offense, but it really was Jonathan Taylor's show, which by all accounts wasn't bad. Like, Jonathan Taylor was awesome. He was the best running back in football. But you did see this year kind of the effects of wear and tear, or just the effects of taking so many hits on the body, because if you're taking 300, 400 hits a season, all it takes is one bad one to leave you with a nagging injury for the entire year that ends up needing surgery after the season. So I'm pretty happy and optimistic about this Colts running back room right now. Zach Moss played extremely well down the stretch. I put out a tweet today here on Sunday. I think those last 4 games where he was the primary ball carrier, I think he had like 330 rushing yards on 69 attempts for 4.7 yards per carry and a touchdown. He had like 9 rushes of over 10 yards on 69 carries, which is great. Like, he played really well. Obviously, Deion Jackson had a really strong season as well. So I don't really think they need to, when Jonathan Taylor does come back, like, he's going to be healthy next season, he's still going to be the guy. But I don't think he needs to get 90, 95% of the snaps, or 80, 85 even. Like, cut those snaps down, use him a little sparingly, kind of preserve his body a little bit, and don't run him into the ground. Obviously, that depends on what kind of head coach they get. But I would like to see, the Colts kind of lessen the hits that he's going to take on that body, because he is still an elite playmaker. But I think this year, to me at least, was kind of like a wake-up call. Like, look, he's not invincible. This is a guy who can still get hurt, and he did get hurt. And again, with running backs, we know once they start getting hurt, it could lead to more. So try to cut those carries down a little bit, use a little bit more guys in that committee, and don't expose your superstar playmaker to unnecessary hits or to too many hits.
And to kind of bring a couple of those last points of yours together, so one of the more encouraging things about Zach Moss is I thought he did really well running inside the
Right.
tackles. When it was Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, they tried to run Nyheim Hines, but it wasn't always successful in short yardage or between the tackle situations. Like at the end of the day, he's a 5'9", 195, 200-pound running back.
Right.
Zach Moss was pretty successful in between the tackles. Deion Jackson as well. So if you want to limit the wear and tear on Taylor, you don't have to rely on him so much as the guy who's taking all the pounding in the trenches and everything. He could be used on the outside a little more. And if you want to do some stuff on early downs with Moss or Jackson, you can now do that. So
yeah,
that's really optimistic. Obviously, hopefully we go into training camp or whatever, with no doubts about Taylor. Hopefully he can participate in mini camp and things like that, because he missed 6 games with this ankle on and off throughout the season. Did miss the last 3. Really, it was most of the last 4, because I think he went out of that Minnesota game like after the first couple plays.
Yeah, first drive.
Yeah, it was career lows across the board, but really, honestly, still a good season for an average running back. 192 carries for 861 yards and 4 touchdowns. 28 catches, 143 yards, no touchdowns. Honestly, one thing, along with the fumble, or along with the ankle, gotta get the fumbles cleaned up again. Lost all 3 fumbles that he had this year, so hopefully that gets fixed as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, shoot, that's hopefully not much more to report on there with that one, because hopefully it's just much ado about nothing. A normal cleanup that hundreds of these players go through each offseason. Just glad it's been done in January.
Oh yeah, I was a big hockey fan growing up and stuff like that. Like I loved watching hockey, and you'd always see after the playoff run, everybody would get surgery, like just a different surgery on every player. And you do kind of see that in football as well. Some of them aren't going to be reported. Like we'll come into camp and you'll get a player like Michael Pittman Jr. being like, "Oh yeah, I had knee cleanup or something," or you'll have Quentin Nelson, "Oh yeah, I had my back cleaned up." Like there's a lot of surgeries that go on in the offseason, some stuff that we don't even know. So I wouldn't be too concerned about this. But again, I get it. It's a running back. It's a running back, and we saw someone like Ezekiel Elliott with Dallas, where once those injuries started piling up, he's kind of just become like a 2-down bruiser that can barely create or is not very explosive. The worst thing that could happen is Jonathan Taylor turning into that, because his game is so built on speed and explosion. You want to see him maintain that through at least the rookie contract, So hopefully they can lessen that load a little bit for him. And hopefully he can bounce back from this ankle injury and return back to the form that we know him from 2021.
Yeah, that'll be big for his financial future, because he's coming up on contract extension time too. So, before we move on, we want to tell you guys that Locked On is heading down to Mobile at the Senior Bowl. Get inside analysis from the hosts that covered the NFL's next generation in college, and find out which NFL draft boards these players will be climbing, all in one location. Subscribe to Locked On NFL Draft for nightly live shows from the Senior Bowl on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Yep. And guys, we're also really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On, because they're the #1 sportsbook in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make sports betting fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with no sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel will let you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. For Conference Championship Sunday, which we're on right now, so you guys obviously already know the results, but they had the Eagles and the Chiefs as 2.5 favorites over the 49ers and Bengals, respectively. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Jake, before we close it off here, I just want to throw one more parting shot about this head coaching search. And it will kind of come off a little bit like a parting shot, but I think it's fascinating that we are seeing again, how many qualified, experienced guys that are coming in? Because like almost all these guys that are coming in for these second interviews aren't the guys who have only been coaching for like 5-6 years. You know, Raheem Morris, Rich Bisaccia, Wink Martindale. Those are the guys who had 20 something years of
Mm-hmm.
experience coaching in the NFL. So we're seeing these guys with very impressive resumes, with guys like Raheem Morris and Rich Bisaccia who have Super Bowl wins under their belt. And then they're meeting with the organization for 12, 13, 14 hours, you know, for these interviews. And I think when I see that, it's fascinating to me on how the Colts could even somewhat entertain the idea of hiring Jeff Saturday after that. Because I just don't understand how you could sell it to not only the fan base, but to all the other coaches around the league that we brought in the most experienced and impressive candidates from in terms of resume building. And we just hired the owner's buddy who has no resume in terms of coaching. So this isn't meant to be like another, again, just I know we've been taking a lot of shots at Jeff Saturday, and I feel like we can talk more favorably about him again once this whole search is over, because at the end of the day, he was in a no-win situation where he really had no chance of success with this roster, and he didn't succeed in anything. So, I mean, it's not really his fault entirely, but he was part of that. He didn't succeed. But the overall point I'm getting to here is if you're going to bring in all these extremely experienced people and spend so much time, I mean, they're going to be spending a total like 60, 70 hours talking with these extremely experienced guys. How do you do all of that and just hire someone who was brought in based off nepotism and relationship to the owner? Like, I don't think that could, like, forget even selling that to the fans, but selling that to the entire league, selling that to candidates that might want to come work under him and stuff like that. Like, how do you even sell that whatsoever? Like, for me personally, I think this lessens the chance of Jeff Saturday getting the job, because you're not just doing like, I've seen a lot of conspiracy theories where people are saying like, oh, they're just showing that they're doing this extensive search and then hiring Jeff Saturday just so it looks like they're doing all this work. You're not spending 60, 70 hours with these guys in person just to make it look like a search. This is a legit search. This is 50, 60, 70 hours in person with experienced candidates. And I have no clue how at the end of all this, Jeff Saturday emerges as that guy. And Tom Pelissero also said that, I think, the other day on Rich Eisen's podcast, where he said he'd be extremely surprised if Jeff Saturday ends up being the guy, because they're going to have so many experienced guys in there for a long time. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me how Jeff Saturday could even move past this stage, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it seem like, if let's say the Colts hired him, I don't want to make it seem like he'd be destined to fail, because we don't know. Like, maybe it does work out, but there's not enough there to even get to the point where you make that jump and give him the job. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just like you said, everyone else is wildly qualified in comparison. And I think it'd be dangerous to do this for so many reasons. You alienate so much of the fan base. That petition that we talked about earlier this week, I think I looked at it last night or this morning, thousands of signatures. Like, there's over 4,000 now. It's like they're new. They keep having to change their petition signage goals because they keep meeting it.
Yeah.
There's just thousands of people, not wanting this to happen. And the bummer, literally, this was a breakfast table topic at my house this morning. I talked with my parents about it. No one wants to hate Jeff Saturday, but they just don't want. They just don't want him as the head coach. Like, they want this to be over so they can get back to loving him.
Right.
And like you said, it alienates so many people around the league as well, because it's insulting. Like, when this happened in November, it was already so insulting to so many assistant coaches around the league. And if you double down and make it happen twice, that's going to chop in half the resources you have to bring in other coaches, because they're going to be pissed off that this happened, especially after there's just quickly off the top of my head, there's at least 3 or 4 guys you've interviewed who have won Super Bowls on a coaching staff. It's not like they won it as a player like Jeff did. Winning a Super Bowl as a coach is a whole new experience, I'm sure. It's wildly different from winning it as a player. So you really dig yourself into a hole to where this better work out if you make the decision. And I also, like, you kind of just totally chop off Chris Ballard's head with that move too, because I cannot see Chris Ballard's final decision being, okay, Jim, let's go with Jeff Saturday. After all these people, Chris Ballard is an incredibly smart football guy. I don't think Jeff Saturday is going to be his pick.
No.
So he's just a GM who's been overstepped constantly this last year. You do this again, why do you even have a GM anymore?
Right. And guys, we're not trying to derail this and turn this into an anti-Jeff Saturday thing here. Again, if they make the move to hire somebody else at head coach, I think we can finally take a step back from this and say, look, Jeff Saturday was a former player who was working a cushy ESPN job, came in with bare bones to work with, and in an impossible situation, he failed like he should have. Like he should have failed. But my argument with all that is you put the impossible in front of him. And if he were to succeed in that, then I would be like, okay, cool, hire him. Like, because if you succeed coming from ESPN to lead a team to a couple wins, like, sure. But he completely failed. Like, he didn't show you anything worth overcoming that issues that he had in front of him. And again, it's not really his fault. It's just there's nothing promising about that at all. And like you said, it doesn't mean he's destined to fail if he were to be a head coach or the head coach of the Colts next year. But there's nothing right now to kind of inspire any confidence whatsoever outside of this guy played for the Colts. Like, why not hire Dallas Clark while you're at it, or Reggie Wayne at head coach? Like, what's the difference at this point? Because they have the same resume, except they have less losses under them as head coaches.
Reggie's been a coach for longer.
Right. Reggie's more experienced for sure. But yeah, like, again, I'm not trying to turn this into a hatred of Jeff Saturday. It really isn't. It's more of a hatred of his candidacy. I don't hate Jeff Saturday. I love him as a player. He's probably a good dude. I don't know him, but I hate him as a candidate, not as a person, not as a player or anything. I think he's just a terrible candidate, especially in the face of all of these really, really qualified and quality candidates that the Colts are bringing in for, again, 12, 13, 14-hour interviews. I just don't know how Jeff Saturday comes out victorious in that. But that's my mini rant. We had a couple minutes at the end of this show, and we're going to have a busy week with more finalists announced, with Senior Bowl stuff, with a ton of stuff going on. So I wanted to get this out of the way early in the week before we start diving into more of that stuff.
I do think it's important to give context to, like, just making statements about negativity on Twitter to clarify. I mean, I think we've done that pretty widely. But yeah, past that, we're going to learn more about head coaching stuff and all that. Maybe more player news, who knows, coming up. But stick with us throughout the week because we will bring you all of that.
Yeah, but make sure you guys are following us along on social medias at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2 on Twitter. Also, subscribe to the Locked On Colts podcast on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. And thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you the local insights you love to the national spotlight with daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow.